Okay, I think I'm here. I think so. I think everything's going. Hi, everyone. How's it going? I'm doing pretty well today. I'm coming off of a long 4-day weekend. It's the French had their Independence Day celebration, as we call Bastille Day. They don't call it that, but Americans do for some reason. And yeah, we spent time with my boyfriend's family in the French countryside, and we relaxed and we went swimming and we had champagne, which I think I've talked about before, but maybe not. I do love champagne. Um, let's get into it. I'm kind of having a dragging afternoon. I think it's probably just coming back from vacation and having just fully relinquished any work obligations for those 4 days, which felt incredible. But I think it's also normal to have a sort of harder than usual get back into it sort of mentality. So that's me. This morning, I also was interviewed for another podcast. It's called the Way of Living podcast. And the host, Morgane, she's actually a friend of a friend I have here in France. She's French living in the UK. And she just interviews cool people. I found out about her interview through or I found out about her podcast through our mutual friend, and we connected, and I just talked about my path, my very unconventional path from moving here to France 5 years ago, and then just putting one foot in front of the other to get to where I am now as a web developer, as a podcast host, and all that fun stuff. So I will definitely let you know on social media, on my email list. If you're not on my email list, do sign up for that. I share a lot of stuff there that I don't necessarily share on social media. So you can sign up for that at www.ladiescodecollective.com. And yeah, when that comes out, that podcast interview, I will 100% be sharing that because I think we had a wonderful connection and a wonderful flowing conversation. So let's get into today's episode. And so in this episode today, I think we're mostly going to talk about the path of the self-taught developer and how easy it is for us to get caught up in thinking that there's any sort of one size fits all path to learning how to code and learning how to program. I think that overall, it's very easy to not start in on something, not start to learn, not to start to make real progress until we have planned everything out. We know exactly where we're going to be going, where we're going to be a month from now in our learning process. We're going to know exactly what concept comes after another concept that we learn. And I just kind of want to debunk that today because it's something that I've had to learn as well on this journey of learning and teaching myself how to code, in that we learn the most when we make consistent, concerted efforts every single day. Or, not every single day, but like for the most part. If the systems and habits we've built enable us to just kind of put those building blocks together every single day, we will be learning. Even on the days that it feels like we're not really making much progress or we're plateauing, those consistent, concerted efforts will make a difference. And they'll make much more of a difference than trying to create this perfect blueprint or trying to create this perfect plan that makes us feel great and already accomplished because we've made a great plan. But then when it comes to actually implementing it and to actually put the plan to use. What's the phrase? It's put, I don't know, put something to action. Um, when it actually comes to that, we don't really do it, or we fall off the bandwagon, or we slip up and we don't hit our first goal that we want to hit, and then we kind of just give up because we ruined it. So let's debunk that myth of the fact of the idea that as self-taught developers, there's a one-size-fits-all approach to learning how to program. I know that for myself, when I was first starting to embark on learning to code, I felt like I had so many choices of what to do next. And it can really feel stressful. It can feel stressful in terms of, how do I know that I'm making the right decision in deciding to study one concept over another? What if, for example, I really start to study and learn this and invest my time in a concept only to never use it, only to realize days, weeks into it that it's actually obsolete. I don't really need this. I think for a lot of us too, time is of the essence. And if we want, for example, to make a career switch, we get a little bit impatient with, okay, well, I want to know this by this time, and I really need to, I need to perfect it. I need to master this concept at a certain time. But we don't really need to. I mean, I think when we pursue coding for the sake of loving it and loving learning, I don't think there's really necessarily a deadline, and I think that creates a lot of unneeded stress and pressure, which can be good, but it can be also just stressful and not fun to learn. Um, so while we obviously want to be sure that we're not wasting time in learning something totally off the wall obsolete, I think that even if we're learning something in any capacity, even if we don't necessarily end up using it, we're still going to be learning about it in terms of the overall coding and programming ecosystem, right? So, say for instance, I don't know, I guess I can use examples from my own experience, but for example, a few months ago, I thought I needed to learn PHP and went on a bit of a deep dive for a couple weeks before realizing that I probably actually didn't need it, and more than that, I didn't really want to know it. So I had dabbled a little bit, but then at the end, I don't think I'm going to go down that path where I need to learn PHP or I need to know PHP. And I don't regret learning it. I don't know it. I don't know, like, I wouldn't be able to just go and code up, but I don't regret spending those couple of weeks really learning it, really going through some tutorials about it. I don't regret that at all, because it helped me suss out and learn more about the overall ecosystem, right? So like learning about what it does, what it's used for, that kind of thing. Another example from my own experience with that is jQuery, right? Like I kind of came into JavaScript when, like, really 7 months ago on a fully focused way. And I know that I had heard before, I'm like, well, after you start learning JavaScript, you need to learn jQuery, which now you don't. And I think maybe I had followed some sort of blog post about what to do next, what you should learn. And I think that, yeah, when you're going through some projects or when you're dealing with older code, there's probably going to be some jQuery sprinkled in there as a framework that was used before. But I don't think you need to know it. And I sort of got into it, and then I realized too that I was like, oh, well, if it's not necessarily something that's really cutting edge right now, then it's not it's really not worth my while. But at the same time, I don't regret having dabbled. I don't regret having spent some time, because it's just that sometimes you come across things that are explained with jQuery, or I remember I had a hackathon project a few months ago, and I was learning to set up, what was I learning to set up? Something having to do with Node.js and creating web pages. And I was going along with this tutorial that it was really, really helping me. And then all of a sudden I got into just like jQuery territory and I had no idea what was going on. I don't know where I was going with this, but that's okay. Anyway, the point is jQuery, PCP. Oh my God, do not say PCP. I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, the point is, even if you don't end up using something, you'll still be happy that you went with it in terms of getting more familiar with the overall ecosystem that it's in. I always say when you're stuck with not knowing what to do next, it's best to just take that one step and do a little bit and then move on from there. One step, pivot. One step, pivot. That's all you need to focus on at any given moment, right? Like, it's good to have your overall bigger, larger, overarching goal, like, learning JavaScript or learning React or eventually landing a job as a junior developer or getting more experience around design aspects as a developer or building an app, building your first app. So you have that large overarching goal. And then you break everything down into small steps. So with each step, you're going to want to ask yourself, is this getting me remotely closer to my overall goal? Even if I ultimately don't end up using it, will it still probably or possibly be helpful for my overall goal? If yes, take the step, learn a few new things, and then repeat it. If no, it doesn't end up getting you a little bit closer, find another step and go from there. If no, it doesn't really end up getting you closer to it, but it's interesting to you, take the step. We don't need to overcomplicate things. I think we can really think of it. We shouldn't think of it as a ladder going up. Like, so we have one step and then one up and then go up, 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 up. And there's just one direction. We can kind of think about it in terms of like a painting, and we paint one part of the picture and then maybe we move on to the corner of it, maybe we move on to the top and start painting the top of the picture. And as time goes on, it all starts coming together in a more cohesive way, right? It's not necessarily, okay, I'm going up the ladder one rung at a time. And it's only that. I can never go from rung number 2 to rung number 7. I have to go rung 3, 4, 5, and then in thinking of it as a painting, it gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of figuring out where to go next. I love this. I have one example when I was first starting to learn how to code about a year and a half ago with HTML and CSS, and I was kind of stuck in that limbo of not knowing where to go next. I didn't know which language to really throw myself into or if there was a right or wrong way to do it. And I was working for a startup at the time, and I remember talking to one of my colleagues who became really a wonderful mentor for me in terms of web development. And, I asked him, I said, what should I do? I'm pretty comfortable with HTML, CSS, and I know I want to keep going with this and I want to do JavaScript, but, how do I learn it? What do I do? What's the blueprint? And his response, I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget it, was JavaScript is going to be a new journey since it's a full-blown programming language. However, the fun is also on a whole new level. It'll make you feel like a wizard. Don't look at it all at once. Start one step at a time. You won't even notice how it'll become a part of you. And I just loved that because that completely illustrates this point of not looking at everything all at once. You have one step at a time, you put one foot in front of the other, and you won't even notice when you just know how to do it inherently. And you won't even notice when that painting that you've been painting, each individual part, when you step away from it and view the whole thing, that it's really finished, that it's really coming together and you can see everything for what it is and what you've painted it for. In general, I think we know deep down if something will work for us or not. I think we also, at the same time, have this conscious or unconscious belief that maybe there's just one thing we're not aware of in the overall coding journey, and that if we only just unlocked that special knowledge, we'd be expert programmers in half the time. Right? So we spend our time and energy really searching for that little thing that unlocks the secrets of the coding universe. But the thing is, that little thing doesn't exist. We can't just get caught up in the planning of learning to code. And we can make so many lists, we can make so many timelines, we can follow so many, the blueprint in 2020 of teaching yourself how to code. But it doesn't exist, the little thing we're looking for, the little key to unlocking the secrets. What does exist, right, is trial and error, consistent effort, being temporarily uncomfortable and not knowing the answer or how to do something. And ultimately just putting one foot in front of the other and learning, and eventually getting better and better at what you're doing, at the language you're learning, at the project you're building. Going back to that point of just different posts and whatnot about where, how to learn to code, what resources to use and whatnot. Before, I loved perusing all kinds of different articles and blog posts from all kinds of different writers about the best path to take as a self-taught developer. It felt amazing, honestly, to get that instant rush of dopamine and planning it all out when I could think of all the skills I'd acquire one day, based on this perfect plan that I was writing out. I had like a huge notebook and was trying to write everything as best as I could. But when it came down to it, I don't think I followed through on those design plans at all. I had written out resources, books I'd eventually read, courses I'd eventually take. But when it came down to it, I don't think I followed through. I think maybe I started on one thing and then it just didn't end up, like, I don't even know what happened to that list of things to do. So over the months, I learned to not overthink it. I learned to take my time and to keep building by putting one learning block and building upon that. And overall, there's just no blueprint for learning how to code. We can search for it. We can think that there might be that one little piece of information that'll help us get there in half the time. And it can feel nice to plan everything out. As I said before, the books we read, the tutorials we'll follow, the targets we'll hit and when exactly. But what feels even better looking back after a few months at all the progress you've made? Oh no, wait. But what feels even better looking back after, no, oh my gosh, I can't read this. But what feels even better is looking back after a few months at all the progress you've made instead of looking forward to all of the imagined progress in your mind as it follows your possibly too good to be true plan. And I think that's really the important part of teaching yourself to code and being on this self-teaching journey, or even if it's not self-teaching, even if you're going through a program or a boot camp. It's that trying to depend or follow a blueprint from, start to finish. Yeah, it might get you there, but it's so important to embrace curiosity on this path as well. And to just put one foot in front of the other. If something feels right and you want to pursue it, do it. And if not, move on to the next step and pivot from there. I think that's it for today. I hope this resonated. And if you haven't yet, come join my email newsletter. It's at www.ladiescodecollective.com. and you'll be updated on any Ladies Code Collective updates. And yeah, I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.